Hello everybody and welcome back to Solitude for one really heavy-hearted last time. Yes, this is going to be Solitude's final episode. We're going to be building the airport, which I mentioned in episode 1. Unfortunately, it's just not sustainable for me to continue this series, so we're going to be building the airport and then taking a little trip down memory lane around Solitude at some of my favourite and proudest builds, and some of the best builds I think I've done in Cities in this game. But to start off with the airport, we're going to be putting it out here right on the edge of the island, exactly where I mentioned in episode 1. And let's briefly dive into Google Earth to see the real life inspiration from this. So this may look familiar. This is the real life version of Solitude, Morea Mau in French Polynesia. It's a little bit different looking, but there we go. But they do have, in exactly the same place where we're going to be putting it, an airport, the Aéroport de Morea Tamai, if I've said that even remotely correctly, I have no idea. But here it is, and it's a very, very small, I'd say regional style airport. You can see out here there's barely even a terminal, there's barely any markings, barely any concrete, barely any hangars. It actually looks like there's boats over here for some bizarre reason. So we're going to be taking a little bit of inspiration from this. We're going to make it slightly bigger and grander and also add in cargo as well. I've also just spied, actually. There's a little helicopter strip over here. We can definitely do something with that. Look at this. That must be some kind of holiday retreat, I think, spanning out into the ocean over there as well. So much inspiration on this island. But the big thing is, we're going to be adding in this housing development right up next to the airport, which I think is a really kind of interesting point to it. If we actually just jump into Street View, you can see here, right outside the front of the terminal, we've got this lovely car park configuration. There is the terminal building itself, which is a marvellous building. Unfortunately, I haven't got anything quite like this to play with in Cities Skylines. But then opposite it is housing. It's right there. You're literally living opposite the airport, which I think is pretty incredible indeed. And particularly over this side, we've just got the airfield, we've got basic dirt roads, a fence, and then these houses opposite it. So we can actually take a little peek out over here as well. You can see a nice bit of airport fencing out onto the airfield, dusty dirt gravel streets, and then lots of housing hidden away here, kind of gravel drives into them, lots of the sort of dense foliage around them as well. That is what we're going to be playing around our airport. So it's going to be pretty basic. One single runway, one very small terminal, a little bit bigger than this one, but also adding in cargo over into this kind of space over here. So coming on to the actual airport build itself, we're starting off by laying out the main structure of it, including a 170 unit runway, which I believe is big enough to accommodate jumbo jets in real life. Feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. We're actually not going to be having jumbo jets here though. I'm only going to be going for small aircraft stands, and I only really want 4, maybe max 5 of these in total in the airport, so we're not going for anything mega grand. And I actually decided with the terminal layout I was going to delete part of it, so we had open plane stands, because although the plane stands need to be attached to a terminal when you actually put them in, you can put them in and then delete the terminal and they remain fully functional, which is a really nice trick. So you can see me doing that at the end here. We've got 2 plane stands actually not attached to the terminal, so people just come off the planes and they walk essentially off the plane yard, which would be much more realistic of an airport like this, and particularly like the one that we saw on Google Earth as well. And then down the other end we add in a small cargo airport. Again, I'm not using the terminal for this, and at the time when I put this in I wasn't 100% sure if this was going to work without the actual massive cargo airport terminal, but I just felt like that was way too big for the space that we had here. So I've just gone with putting in the cargo airport road with a couple of stands on it. Nothing more than that. So again, going relatively low key, but just making sure that we're bringing in that cargo facility to the area. Then we just add a little bit of decoration around it with the fuel stand and a couple of hangars, including this little one off the workshop, which I love, and I think that adds to the airport over here. And in terms of getting access to it, I wanted one main exit off our highway, which we've already placed in, that comes right around the island, right from the downtown in 2 different directions actually. It loops around the coastline here. So we're starting off with just a basic, I call it a jug handle, but maybe it's a jersey turn, I think, going off of the highway here. And this is to get into the actual passenger airport side of it. So this road through won't be connected through to the cargo. They'd have to go back out onto the highway to connect round to that. So just a pretty basic intersection here. I don't think traffic's going to be mega around the airport. I may correct myself further down the line, but I think for now it'll be fine. And then I just add in a couple of kind of holding car parks. I actually come back and change up this configuration entirely in just a second. I didn't like how these looked. I wanted to go for more of a kind of interesting approach to the car park, like the version that we saw on Google Earth as well. So we come back in and change this up for parking lot roads in a second. But that's just a kind of holding place for now. And of course you may remember back from the network episode we did where we put in a whole bunch of highway networks. I also have a train line coming down to the airport from the downtown main train station. So of course I wanted to connect that in, and we're just using a very small local train station asset off the workshop for this. So it's nothing more than essentially a couple of platforms, because I think that's all that's needed around our sort of semi-regional airport that we're putting in here. And then just to finish this off, I do add in a little police station over this side for a bit of added security. We'll do some more building around that in just a second. And then coming back to the cargo side, I of course added a toll booth here, because why not? We need that security entrance into a cargo kind of terminal in an airport. Definitely would be realistic here. So we add that in, and then I just add in a very, very simple intersection onto the highway. And this part of the highway actually is a kind of split 2 lanes in each direction. So a bit more of a substantial intersection than the other one, particularly because we'll have cargo traffic flowing around here. But I think in the end it works nicely, and it should hold the traffic that we have coming into this area at least. So that is the basic structure of the airport now in, and it is functional. People are using it. I was wondering for a while there if actually planes weren't even landing. I saw some to begin with and then there weren't any, but we do now have planes. We've got passengers being serviced. We have a look at the airport area. We've had over 1,000 passengers actually already. You can see tons of people moving outside the front. Loads of people using the trains as well, which is great to see. That one's not full, but they're coming in and out at least, so that's a positive. And our cargo airport is also functional like this without the main terminal building, so that is pretty exciting indeed. We have got trucks coming and going from our very basic intersection over here, so it's all kind of fully functional and nice and small and compact, but there is an absolute ton of details obviously to put around here, so that's what we're going to come on to now. So as mentioned, I wanted to change up the car parks that I had originally plopped in here to make it a little bit more similar to the actual real life airport. So we're going to go for this kind of interesting pattern with parking lot roads here. So it's almost like you have to drive through the whole car park. It's not a huge car park either, because it's not a huge airport, but it should be ample parking, I think, for the size of it. And it's quite a lot more than actually what is in the real Mao airport in reality. But I think the car parking lot roads lend themselves really well to this. We can fill in the spaces as we want, and we also have this small little section at the front of the airport dedicated to our disabled parking, which I think is a nice touch right outside the front there. And then a couple of little places around the car park where there's odd gaps because of the configuration of it, and where we've used no controller to close up some of the gaps, we add in a few little planters here. So I just used this basic square concrete planter, resized it with Move It using the full stop key to make it slightly larger to fit the space nicely, and then added a couple of decorative trees. Again, alongside these concrete bits here, we added a really nice street tree to this, which offers a bit of shade as well around the car park, which I quite like the effect of. Then we just add in some basic walking paths to get people around the airport configuration a bit easier. So taking them up to the station, for example, widening out that pavement around the front of the airport, I thought was quite a key feature here. And with the train station, I actually didn't want to do too much to it. I didn't want to add like a big train station building. I wanted to keep it pretty low key. So we just add a motel opposite it and a little bit of concrete brush around it to widen out those platforms and the area that it's actually standing on to fill in some of those gaps. And then of course, alongside the motel, I wanted to add a little bit more hotels in here. So instead of using the airport's DLC hotels, which I thought were just a bit too big for the vibe I was wanting to go for, we used the budget hotel from the Hotels and Retreats DLC, but 3 of them in a bit of a sort of combination back to back to make a slightly larger hotel building. And then we just finish it off with a little bit of extra car parking around the back using our plain concrete roads here to make the entrance into the hotel pretty seamless with the pavements. And then a couple of little extra details around some of the parking lots to make them blend in a little bit better. So just a bit of farm fence and a few little bushes here. And then around the rest of it, I thought it was really important, and because it is the final episode, to bring in some more of that Solitude jungle foliage that we know and love so well from this series. So a whole bunch of ferns in here, as well as our cluster bushes, a few little of the smaller acai palm trees as well from the workshop. just to bring that greenery in. And then I do add a couple of shops. We've got a big bite in here for people to grab a bite to eat while they're waiting for their planes or just arrived into Solitude, and a little shop as well on the corner here, which I thought was a nice touch. And then combine it with 2 little taxi ranks. And then you can see here, it's just more of the jungle foliage being brought in around, particularly combined with some of our big palm trees as a bit of added extra decoration around the airport. I definitely think they would strategically plant some decorative palms around here. And then I just come in with the airport fence to secure the entire area around the whole airport. And this is going to be our boundary for where we're going to put our neighbourhood in just a minute. And I wanted to make this little extra entrance that we've got running round to the side of the hangar and also to the police station a little bit more secure. So we're adding in some of our security gate fences in here, and I did notice as well that people getting off these planes were jumping straight onto this road and bypassing the terminal, which was kind of annoying me. So I've done quite a bit of fiddling with that road to pull them away from those airport stands to try and stop the people from doing that, but I'm not sure. I think they are still doing it come the end of the episode, which is quite irritating. And then finally out the front, of course, because it's Solitude, we need a little bit of shade, so we had a couple of shelters with a few little benches underneath for people to sit and wait outside the airport terminal. And then just to finish off the front of the airport, it is more of our lovely green foliage. And in particular, I think this works pretty well here because we've got this oil texture all over the airfield, which almost looks a little bit like scorched grass in this theme, which I quite like because it kind of maybe seems like the aeroplanes have almost burnt the ground, like with all of their jet fuel spilling out onto it. So adding lots of our greenery around it helps to disguise this sort of brownness a little bit and bring more of our green from the rest of the island into the area. But I also quite like how the sand texture looks under some of these trees. Because we're so close to the sea as well, I think that adds a little bit of extra sort of realism with that kind of brown texture spilling out underneath some of the trees here. It sort of helps to blend the whole thing in, I think. And so with that, we've got the front of the airport all sorted, so it's now time to come on and tidy up the airfield. And unlike Oridan's airport, which was an absolute minefield of props and loads of kind of decorative lines and planes and things like that, this is very, very simple in comparison. So actually I'm going back and adding in a couple of little airport signs for realism out the front here. But in this very small concrete area that I've just put here, I wanted to add in a few little extra props because I think it's definitely realistic that I'd have some kind of storage area for some of the stairs and the access to the planes, particularly because they are not attached to the terminal with the size of aircraft stands that we've chosen here, and also a bit of a storage space for some of the baggage carts as well. So we add in quite a few of those, as well as a couple of little pushbacks and a couple of the sort of small truck things that they use to pull the baggage carts around the airport or transport different things around the airport. And I did notice as well that the planes are so wide that of course they spill out over the taxiways, which is quite annoying, so the wings are sort of cutting over where the baggage goes, but unfortunately I was left with virtually no space for our props if I didn't use that, so we are trying to ignore it a little bit. And then as we added helicopter stands onto some of our desert islands we've done more recently in Solitude, I decided to add the helicopter depot here as well as a stop at the side of the airport by our little custom hangar. And then I also added in an extra helipad into the Fewer Island Resort. Love that name. I know a lot of you called for that to happen, so here it is. I'm just adding it in at the side of the main hotel, which I feel is like a relatively discreet place for some of those celebrities to come in and out of the resort. And then we just connect this up as well as across to our Richard Branson style billionaires island. And that's it. So nice and simple. So it's just a helicopter line that connects essentially the luxury rich islands to the airport. It's not actually going to the mainland, but of course we do have the train access for people to go straight from the airport straight into the downtown and then across the island as they see fit. So I think from a public transport connectivity point of view, that's a pretty good start. And also I'm hoping as well, because helicopters are so overpowered in this game, that this will mean that we're not going to get the absolute hordes and queues of citizens all choosing to take a helicopter really unrealistically across the island to their particular destinations. So yeah, just limited to access to those islands from that point of view. Then you'll have seen I've added in a few little prop planes. a couple of the like smaller sort of private jets into here, and then just surface painting a lot of this big area. And particularly around the cargo airport side of things, we add in a few more props. So in the actual cargo loaders for the planes, a few more pushbacks as well. As always, you'd find these lying around airports all over the place. And then I actually decided to add a few little containers in here, which I thought would be a nice touch. Maybe the containers obviously don't go onto the planes, but maybe they're containing stuff ready to be taken on and off. So we've got a couple of actual functional warehouses, which we add to commercial zoned goods into here to bring those in and out of the airport and help the transportation that side. And then just finishing it off, we have a couple of offices in here as well, which I think would be important for administration around the cargo airport, particularly being located just inside of the security toll booth entrance here. I think is kind of a nice realistic place for them. And then you'll see we're just going around with lots of brush tool, filling in some of those extra areas with lots of our Solitude jungle foliage. So I'm going to leave you briefly with a quick time lapse as we build out the neighbourhood around our airport. Very similar theme to what we've done elsewhere in Solitude, and then we're going to come back at the end, take a closer look at the airport as well as fly around the city and reminisce before we finally do say goodbye. Okay, so here we have Solitude International Airport and its surrounding neighbourhood. So just a quick little note on the neighbourhood, very basic here. We've just kind of used vanilla housing for this, all positioned up against our traditional Solitude mud road. The foliage in all around it. We've got a little kind of shopping area in the middle here. Really quite like actually the grass spikes poking through and how the concrete actually blends into the dirt path. I did think, should I change this to a concrete path? But no, actually I quite like the sort of blend of the concrete into the dirt, like they've built up these shops and obviously concreted the bases of these around this and the dirt's kind of spilled over onto that. Quite liking that effect. We do also massive shout out here to the FewCandy truck. Love this. We have got Squircle rum trucks floating around somewhere in Solitude as well. We do also have a small elementary school in here just on the corner with the old ruined overgrown playground. Loving that. And a small industrial area just to support a few little jobs around the area too over here. But all kind of in line with how Solitude usually is. I did dot in a few parks to keep the residents happy. And then down this side we've also got another small row of shops next to our little custom tropical playground over here. So liking that. A few little rocks onto the beach, but all kind of very open, as we saw on Google Earth, coming right up to the edges of the beach here. But all dirt roads. I did actually go for a gravel road round the outside, which I quite like the effect of, and then you've got the plains right there. So yeah, pretty intense, and I was very surprised to find this on Google Earth, but this is wholly realistic and apparently pretty common actually as well. We do have a little bit of a traffic jam at our level crossing over here as the trains are kind of coming in and out, so I'm hoping that clears pretty quickly. As the train's coming out here, it should kind of start to move on as this train moves in. We could perhaps just lengthen this section of track a little bit and bring the junction slightly further down, which would get rid of the need for the trains to stop and block the junction there, but like it's not too bad. I think it'll be okay. Yeah, the barriers are lifting now and on they go as our planes fly in overhead. So yeah, I like this that they take off now over the ocean and they fly in kind of having passed the main Solitude Island into the airport here, so liking that effect. And of course here's our airport. It's actually surprisingly really busy. And also, again, another massive shout out to Terry for our wonderful flags here. The Jack Squircle rum, we've also got the Solitude flag and the Orion flag in here by way of a little kind of token. Well, I love the flags outside the airport. I think that's appropriate effect, but a little token gesture and a little nod to our city of Orion as well over here. But yeah, really liking how the car parks worked out. Much better than popping in those vanilla car parks. And yeah, particularly with all the ferns around it. Really loving this vibe. Quite different to the one on the actual island. A lot more modern and a lot more built up, but I like it nonetheless. And then our little hotels, of course, over here. The motel outside the station. Tons and tons of people, my goodness. Yeah, very busy indeed. That station's getting a lot of use. And actually, if we go over to the helicopters as well, we don't have an inordinate amount of people waiting there for the helicopters. There is a few using it, so it is kind of getting some use, but it's not too bad. And I've made sure the helicopter route kind of bypasses where the planes are coming in, so we shouldn't get any mid-air collisions. I know some of you may complain about the helicopter pad being so close to the airport, but this airport's a little bit busier than I'd maybe have thought that it would be and what I was trying to design here. But yeah, it all kind of comes together. We've obviously got our little cargo airport bit over the end here, which is very busy. Lots of cargo coming in and out. This intersection though actually is holding up pretty well at the moment. Obviously if I was to come in and develop up this side, then that might get a little bit busier, but from the truck traffic point of view and people coming out into the neighbourhood round here, it's all working for the moment. So yeah, that is Solitude International, the final build to go in here. I am going to be opening this up for the opportunity for you guys to essentially complete this city, which I'll showcase on the channel if there's enough of you that want to do that further down the line. So watch out on my community tab or on the Discord for more information about that. You will need a fairly beefy PC, I will add, but you can pick smaller areas to work on, so you might not need to go near any of my intense detailing if you don't want to. But yeah, let's just take a little look around. So we've got Fewer Island over here with the Few Seasons Resort, and this is absolutely one of my favourite places in Solitude. I particularly love these stilt houses along the beach here. I just think they work so well, and in the mountainside over here. But the main thing I love about this is this little kind of dirty, hectic tropical island town where we've got this big structure with all of the kind of industry underneath it. We've got a little bus terminal over here with some of the local buses. We've got a little marketplace with the statue of Captain Jack Squircle out in the front here. Everything's a bit flashy. This is the trouble. Solitude's struggling a little bit at this point as well. But it all kind of comes together, a little bit dirty, a little bit rough, a little bit cracked and worn. But I love Fewer Island. Yeah, I'm very pleased with how that came out, particularly with our very tiny little port over here with the ginormous ships coming in. And not to forget as well our little observatory build on the end of the island over here. Very nicely secluded with the weather station. Do quite enjoy that, and of course the views back over to the main island over here. And then we come across to our billionaire's mansion island, where of course the helipad is now operational. I should probably move the prop helicopter off there so the other ones aren't landing on top of it. But here we go, we've got the ferry deck operational. There still seems to be very few people on this island. They do come and go, but there's not much infrastructure over here really to attract them, so I'm guessing that's probably why. We obviously have our little guest quarters at the end. You can see there's a couple of cars parked, so there are people here somewhere hiding in the undergrowth. I absolutely love this little pool area as well. It's so secluded. I would absolutely go on holiday there. That would be a dream destination. Of course, our little lagoon in the middle with our little rowing boat sat on the side. Absolutely love this vibe. I'm really, really going to miss all of the ferns and the palms and the undergrowth. I think that was possibly my favourite thing, is all the green around Solitude, trying to get that sort of almost rainforest tropical vibe to it. Little beach resort out here, and then we head up of course to our big main mansion with the tennis courts, and then the double layered pool area with various different places for entertaining and eating around here. Ah, yes. I was very, very pleased with this build indeed. Absolutely love how the islands have turned out. And then let's head across right back to where it all began over here. So we've got Bradley Stantonville, which was our starting suburb over here. You may remember, with all the bobbed European suburbia housing, which I think works super well in this tropical environment. Particularly where we brought in a whole ton of undergrowth with it. I actually had to trim this back over time because it was a little bit too much for the frame rate to actually handle. When I started this off, I went a bit overboard with the undergrowth, but it works so fantastically. I love how it's kind of spilling out over the roads, and the use of these road assets as well. Really super kind of rural and low-key in comparison to using the vanilla roads. Yeah, very, very satisfied with that. Of course, we did also come up the hill with our part-built houses up over here. Little bits of trash and things around them. Of course, a lot of trash going into Solitude in general. And then our recycling centre over here with a bit of industry. This was where it all began. And of course our waterworks at the top of the hill, which I know was an inappropriate place to put a sewage works. But it's relatively low-key and pretty small, not like Solitude, which we will come on to at some point. We've of course got Patitude over here as well. Now this feels like so long ago we put in these rice fields. But again, like really, really love this. It's some of the most original builds I think I've come up with actually in this city. Very, very different to what I kind of maybe expected to build when I first started on the map. But I love it, these very kind of rural, isolated communities out here. I think we had another one up here in amongst the rice fields, yeah. With different motorbike props and the washing lines and some of the plastic chairs out and about. Yeah, really, really enjoyed this and really enjoyed the layers of these rice field assets coming in here up the hill. I think that added a really super nice dynamic. And of course we also had Lucara Farms, which was right back in episode 2 when we did this sort of semi-tropical farm area. All of this is a little bit ribboned now with the lack of our block services for industries coming off the workshop. It's kind of ruin some of the supply chain around this area. But yeah, I really loved actually bobbing off the fruit fields and getting rid of some of the trees here, and the effect we got with this ground, like looking like they're replanting different fruits or vegetables around here, and the fact that you can see the farm workers at work without those trees in the way. Really, really loved that. That was a nice little find when I came across that. And of course then we go up the hill to probably, in fact I think almost definitely, the longest build I've ever done. It took me hours and hours and hours to get this right. But we do have FewVella up over here, of course. We head up into our makeshift Vella in Solitude. Gosh, yes, just placing all of these buildings and the little bits of trash around it. Trying to make sure that doors weren't too sunk into the terrain as we went up and down these hills, that they were all kind of like appropriately placed on top of each other, because we were layering so many different assets here. Like there's actually an absolute ton of housing in this area. So pleased with how that came out. Yeah, FewVella, I think definitely my most challenging build I've ever done, and probably one of the things that I'm most proud of actually in Solitude in terms of how it came out. Little football pitch over here as well. Then we came up to Altitude. Love the name of this. All these name suggestions in Solitude was so good. We do have our little mansion pool area. This was like still one of my favourite views actually in Solitude. If we come down here, overlooking the town of Serenity over there, with all our different people, sim props hanging out in the pool with their big retaining wall overlooking some of these much sort of more wealthy houses in the hills over here. And of course we did add in the cable car coming up and down the hill here too, up from our budget spa hotel, I think is what we called it down here, which we did on a stream, of course. This little tram turnaround area and a very small little Green Cities market at the back here. Yeah, I love how that little valley turned out. We'll come back to Serenity in a minute, but carrying on up the beach, we did have the Caswady beach up here. Super nice and open and simple. And this was inspiration from Google Earth from a beach in Hawaii, which I think we kind of pulled off. And there was also the discovery of using no controller to shift over these car parking lots so the cars could just go straight on and the parking lots were off the side. Very pleased with how that came out in this little area too. And then we have the massive Solitude up here as well. These names were so brilliant. And Secluded Slopes, I think it was, going up the back too. Love how this came out with our little local station here on the side as well. Perhaps one day we will do a first-person train tour if anyone would like to see that, going right from Solitude all the way over to the airport. It'd be quite a nice little run, that. And then of course down this side we also have Serenity, and this was the first time using these realistic beach assets as well shortly after they came out. Love how this turned out, and it's much less busy now actually than it was when I put it in, because there's so much more in the city now for people to flock to instead of just this area. We also had Beach Bum Bob's bar here on the beach. Absolutely loved that, with our little kind of like beach sail hut over here and another little bar out here to the beach. Yeah, very pleased with that. Love the town centre in Serenity too, with our little kind of pop-up fair in the square over here. Very tiny little fun fair. Really enjoyed that. And this station still remains pretty busy to this day. Actually the platforms look quite empty, but the flow of people from the station into the trams, which stop around about here, which flow around this side of the island, is pretty busy indeed. You can see the bus station over here as well, getting an awful lot of use. Ended up being quite a big transport hub over here in Serenity. Of course, also another key feature of Solitude was the pockets of industry in and amongst all of the houses, which you can find like one of them right here. I think our starting one was pretty cool actually, if we go back to that. Yeah, behind our big medical centre where we'd fused in the elder care into the back of the little clinic there, and then we had this industry at the back here with all of the undergrowth sitting through the kind of fence, which was broken in different places, yeah, around the back here. Loads of tyres, just an absolute ton of props going into this. Really had so much fun building out the little pockets of industry in Solitude. Right up my street. And we also had solid crude oil over here. Again, a massive shout out to Terry as well for the magical solid crude oil billboard. That was the first custom billboard I'd had done for Solitude, so that was quite an honour, I will say. We've got another little FewCandy truck there as well. Love, love, love that. Oh, and here's a Jack Squircle Rumco. Yes, we have finally seen one. They are all over the city in different little places. We've also got our rail yard over here, kind of sat into this big rail junction flowing around it. I was super pleased with that. And we also do have Shopitude over here, which is our massive outdoor mall. And I've just noticed there's loads of surfaces missing, and this is the problem with modded Cities Skylines 1, is things keep getting removed from the workshop and not replaced. So there's clearly an area that needs patching up there. So we'll move away from that pretty swiftly. But yeah, I really like the combination of the hotel and the fast food restaurants and the garage in here, all dotted around these car parks with this big shopping mall on the side of it. Really, really loved how that worked. And that then, of course, also went through into our little stadium over here. With all the hexagonal, octagonal, whatever I called it, wrong stadium over this side. Definitely got that very wrong at the time. And then we also have Solitude up on the hill over here. Really, really love this build. This one's suffering a bit as well because of the removal of block services. Suffering a little bit from that, but really liked how this sat into the hillside up here, particularly with the workers' barracks, makeshift workers' barracks on the side of it. Yeah, really pleased with that. And then we head on round into the downtown with our huge custom intersection, which is finally actually getting use in all directions because of the airport now. So people are carrying on up the hill round the crazy U-turn bend that we put in up here. Danger ahead bend. But yeah, really, really pleased with this intersection as well. This took a lot to kind of figure out how to do it in this awkward space with the hillside up here, but I think it sat in pretty well. Then we come into, obviously, the downtown, and this transport hub still remains mighty busy. Yeah, you can see that right here. People coming in and out of the trains. We've got tram stops underneath the train station here. Wow, you can see the platforms actually up there. Very, very busy indeed. We also have metro and tram stopping in here. And then they come through, and this is another metro station over the other side. So yeah, tons and tons of transport around here. And just super busy all the time. But love how this bridge goes through to the cathedral the other side. That was kind of nice, having this bit of old town essentially in the middle here, with a few extra modern built up things around our cathedral grounds. But yeah, I liked how that sat in. And then of course the crowning feature of the downtown was Squircle Square out here, with of course our statue of Captain Jack Squircle, the inventor of the Solitude rum, sat proudly in the centre of this square. But yeah, this downtown was kind of an interesting build because I wasn't really sure how to do it when I wanted to keep this rural vibe in Solitude, but I also wanted to have a big city. I think it came out pretty nicely, mixing in the sort of older colonial types of buildings in and around the downtown. We've also got this lovely little square here with our metro station and trams outside. There's just so many people around the downtown. It's quite satisfying to watch them all just move around like that around the place. But yeah, I was very, very pleased with this. Also kind of struggling with the terrain here as well, because we built the whole downtown on quite a big slope. So you can see that in certain places here where we've tried to use little bits of retaining wall to prop up some of these buildings. It's a little bit dodgy in certain places, but it didn't come out too bad. So obviously little custom pool areas here and there. And then also coming down over this side, you can see where those layers come into effect. Yeah, like here, where in between some of them we've added these very tiny little rock gardens. And then on the other side, of course, a big retaining wall key element to it. Nice little covered market in the middle as well. I kind of forgot about that actually. And then our mall on the big waterfront out here. All came together pretty nicely in the end. And then we come into this, and this I think is one of my favourite builds ever. I love this port so much. The Shot Harbour, big shout out to David Shot, my Patreon here, in which this was named after. But this took some work, getting all of these decals and intersection marking tool and things in to line up these roads. without actually using proper roads to give us that kind of worn down concrete port vibe. And then of course our little sort of semi-quarry on the end over here. Absolutely love how this port came out. We've got the rail coming in the middle and the actual cargo harbours over this side. We've also got the cruise terminal and ferry terminal over this side as well. So absolutely tons going on here. But yeah, just absolutely love the road markings. That's one of my favourite things I've ever done in cities, is making these roads look worn when it's all just concrete, plain concrete all over the place. And we come on to our little ore area as well. This was cute. Really like this, particularly with all the layers. I think that's one thing I'll miss about Solitude, is actually building on this crazy terrain. Like, it was always really fun trying to come up with ways to build sensibly on such mad terrain, like with all these big rocks as we come over into the Daniel Jepson Valley. Big shout out to Daniel Jepson, my Patreon as well. Thank you for all of the support from all of my Patreons. It's greatly appreciated. And this is really busy actually. Tons of people walking up and down these very steep slopes up here. Of course, we also have the Orchid Bay Nursery up here. Shout out to Overcharged Egg. This was kind of a fun build, making this little garden centre, which again was based on real life inspiration from Hawaii. And then you can see the sort of slope down here and all that green of the Solitude jungle all around it. Yeah. Love this area. Super fun building on that slopey terrain. And of course we have our last live stream over here, which went in a totally different direction to what I was expecting, with our kind of Italian job scene of the bus in the landslide hanging over the cliff with stuff spilled out. Some race car over here, a guy hanging off the edge of the bus and someone coming down to rescue them from the helicopter. Yeah, that was a lot of fun. We had a lot of fun in these live streams, like, so appreciate all of you for rocking up for that. And then we also do have our lagoon park out here. Now this was kind of a big point in terms of the lore of Solitude as well, where we have got Tacky Tropical. Huge shout out to No Miss and Brad for making this billboard for us. Drink unresponsibly, of course, over here. And we also put in the Thornberrys into here. So Betty Thornberry was having a meeting with this young chap while Bruce and Bobby Thornberry watched on. Yeah, I love this. Tacky Tropical is something that will absolutely live in my memory forever. Great name. I've just seen as well this car park. Yeah, that's what happens for Modern Cities 1 when people start removing stuff from the workshop, unfortunately. Then we got our big waterfront out here with our waterfront mansions. This was super fun as well. Really enjoyed doing that with our little marina over this side. Slotted in quite nicely. And then we come on to our luxury condos with the crazy golf course in the middle. Again, this feels like so long ago we did this. But this was a lot of fun as well, even using the clown head and actually quite enjoying it to decorate up our crazy golf course. And the grandfather clock here as well, super random. Super random. But these condos, yeah, absolutely love how these turned out, with the little pool decorations out the back, the custom beach down here that they can all walk onto, the tiny little harbour for our ferries, a couple of little sailing boats down here. Yeah, love this. Love this little pool area. All the pool areas were super fun to make as well. And then, oh yes, massive shout out to the incredibly talented Sully as we come on to Solitude Water Park. Absolutely love this. This was such a fun build and totally crazy. Seeing these actual functional water slides and people actually going down them. This crazy one even going through. Oh, we even placed the sparkly rainbow unicorn park, which is something I never thought I'd ever put into a city, but we found a place for it and I think it was okay. We even found a place for the crazy spider snake African and miniature building here, and of course also, let's not forget, the Sphinx. The Sphinx slide over here. I love this. This was so much fun. So much fun. Really loved the lazy river as well. That's an awesome little ride to go around that. Yeah, very proud of this build indeed. And then finally, last but not least, massive shout out to my mod and Patreon Ebo for the E-Botanical Garden idea. Absolutely love this park, using a few of the different zoo assets, the botanical garden, various other park assets. This all came together super nicely, and yeah, blending it in around this custom sort of waterfall coming off the mountain here. With lots of our little nature reserve paths flowing around it, and there's people on the bridge. Yay! Love this. Love this so much. Thank you for that wonderful idea, Ebo, and thank you to everyone for all of your inspiration and input into Solitude. It's been absolutely marvellous to build it out, and I am really, really, really super sad to see it come to an end. But I would love to see this map and this city filled out and completed one day. So whether I find the time to do that in my free time, or whether that's you guys that help me build it out, time will tell. But for now, that is all from Solitude. So let's just say goodbye over by International Airport. If you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares are really greatly appreciated. I still have Cities 1 content on the channel with the continuation of Funilla County, and we're diving right into Cities 2 content with our brand new city, Philadelphia, so make sure you subscribe to catch that if you haven't already. But that's all from me for now, so thank you so much for tuning in, and for one last time in Solitude, enjoy the cinematics. Goodbye.